this guy, Dylan Tallman, is intertwined in this whole Watts saga. So let's take a look at him and who he is. Currently incarcerated, and he is, and it says he's at Dodge, but he's not there anymore. Now, he has been moved many times. He's been in several different mini facilities. As you will see here, this is his movement. Now, let's start from the bottom. As you see, he's been incarcerated for a long time. First incarcerated, it says in 2010. Doesn't look like he was anywhere in 11. In 12, he has 3 different movements. In 13, so 11 times in 13. In 14, there was 2 times. In 15, there's several. I'm not going to count them, but you see there's several. And then the current of 16, that is when this report was made in 16. So he's been in and out here and there since 2010. And as you see, there's several many. And it looks like his records start showing that he started, being arrested and being convicted in 2006. So in 2006, that would have made him, being born in 1988, that would have made him 18. And then, of course, it goes on down to current day, he is still incarcerated. So, this, of course, is going to be his adult arrest record. Juvenile's going to be sealed, it's not going to show. So, anything that happened to him before 18 years old, you're not going to see, because that is a juvenile record, and those are sealed. This is the first time that I had heard of Dylan Tallman. Okay, now, I have now found out that Dylan Tallman is an author. The name of the book is A Blessing in Disguise, and he actually wrote this book in 2013. A young individual named Dylan was robbed of his youth, losing everything every average young man should obtain. He was brought up having nothing, having to earn everything on his own. At 16, he was forced to live on his own, holding no work experience. His only talent was music. He was introduced to the drug-dealing lifestyle, becoming successful. As he grew, so did his money, his clientele, and eventually enemies. He outsmarts the police and accumulates every young man's dream: money, women, and respect. He ends up in the worst situation of his life, receiving a lengthy prison sentence. Not knowing only the criminal lifestyle, how will he evolve? This action-packed story involves deep struggles, violence, sex, and illegal distribution, resulting in remedy suitable for teens and adults. And this is the front of the book. Obviously, it's called A Blessing in Disguise. This is the back of the book. And of course, this is what we have just read. And of course, wouldn't you know, customers who viewed Dylan's book also viewed this book. And you can buy it now on Amazon for about $150 if you would like to have that book. Moving on into the Dylan puzzle, we have this lady, and her name is Christa. Okay, Christa is known by many for being a pretty regular guest on Unchair Detective. And she has been saying, Dylan telling her all kinds of things about what happened in the Watts case, and Dylan and Chris being like brothers, all the way to the point that Dylan and Chris has actually written a book together, and Dylan had sent her this book so she could add parts into the book herself and kind of co-author it with them, is the way I understood it, and then she was to get it published. This article goes on to say that Chris Watts has been disciplined and separated from his quote-unquote brother in spirit after prison guards found his underwear, a jar of Vaseline, and baby oil in the other man's cell. But the inmate's fiance insists that Chris was only helping out his friend. It says both Chris, 35 years old, and his prison pal Dylan were punished in July after Watts' possession was found in Dylan's cell. It was revealed last week. Reports suggest the discovery showed the two were having sex while in prison. The discovery forced authorities to separate the two, who had grown close as they served out their sentences in adjoining rooms. But Christa, Dylan's fiance, says in an exclusive interview that Chris and Dylan were merely good friends who found each other in prison, and they are not lovers. I can definitely prove that my fiance is not gay, and neither is Chris, she said. And I don't believe that force of circumstance, because they were locked up, led them to have any sexual contact. Those accusations are just crazy, and I just have to laugh about it, she said. Christa, who lives in East Haven, Connecticut, is planning to marry career criminal Dylan Tallman as soon as he is released from Dodge Correctional Institute. Christa says, I know both Chris and Dylan, and I know their relationship. They're friends. They are very close, but that's all there is to it, she said. Christa wrote to Chris, but Chris received so much mail from female admirers, he passed her letter on to his friend Dylan. Allegedly, it was in return for a cinnamon bun and a packet of ramen noodles. Christa denies there was any such trade. Christa is a clinical psychologist who specializes in sexual abuse and trauma cases, and says she worked inside the Connecticut prison system. But she had to quit due to her lupus, the same disease that Shanann suffered from. She is convinced Chris was railroaded into his guilty plea and that he was not involved in the killings of his wife, daughters, and unborn son. She says, I watched the videos of Chris with his children and his wife. It was really difficult for me to believe clinically that he was capable of committing that crime. Dylan, who has been in and out of prison throughout his adult life, wrote her back within a week, and they started a correspondence that led to him proposing to her over the summer. She now sometimes refers to herself as Christa Tallman, although she has not legally changed her name. She said that she traveled to Wisconsin to meet Dylan 3 times before the COVID pandemic shut down all their visits. And since then, she has relied on Zoom meetings, phone calls, and more than 100 letters just to keep in touch. And according to the internal prison documents, the other items included petroleum jelly, candy, soap, Q-tips, cocoa butter, Carmex lip balm, secret deodorant, coffee, baby powder, Post-it notes, a black Sharpie, lotion, and baby oil. Chris and Dylan were placed in separate units of the 1,165-bed lockup. Dylan was placed in solitary confinement and he lost phone privileges for 4 weeks. Chris lost his phone privileges for 2 weeks and was barred from buying commissary items for 4 weeks. Christa said that Chris and Dylan had adjoining one-man cells inside Dodge. They discovered they could hear each other if they spoke into an electrical outlet in the wall that separated them, which they dubbed the quote-unquote holy outlet. She said both of them have turned to religion inside this maximum security prison. She said, "He's delightful. He's just great. He's wonderful. I feel comfortable enough with Dylan to be able to marry him and jump right into a relationship. I've gotten to know him very, very well. I know Dylan is not gay because of the relationship he and I have." Chris was just trying to help out a friend, Christa said. They spent 9 months side by side, talking through an outlet for 23 hours a day. Of course they became very friendly. Chris and Dylan have written 2 books of Christian devotionals together since meeting behind bars. Christa, who was brought up with a Roman Catholic father and a mother who practiced witchcraft as a Wiccan, contributed to one of them. She said the book should be published around New Year. Christa said she is also in contact with Chris's parents, Ronnie and Cindy Watts, and although she would not talk about their view of their son's case, she said they are a very lovely family. They're amazing. In their hearts, they know their son, and they know who they raised. One thing about Dylan is he takes forever to get ready. Everything has to match. He has to lotion up. That's why the Vaseline was there. He uses it for his lips. He has dry skin, pride in how he looks, even in prison. He still wants to be clean and he still wants to look good. It's difficult for Dylan. He's having a hard time without having Chris next to him in the cell. They call each other brothers in spirit. In one of his letters, Dylan asked, "Who would ever think someone like me, who grew up on the streets selling drugs and a gangbanger, would become best friends with somebody who had a great family life and actually went to school?" He told her he has been around murderers and criminals his entire life and did not believe that Chris was capable of killing his family. Christa said that it was actually Cindy Watts who told her and informed her that Dylan was placed in segregation, as she could get no information from the prison authorities as to why she could not contact him. Christa said, "If it wasn't for Cindy, I wouldn't have known for 4 weeks where my fiance was or whether he was even dead or alive." Okay, this article came out 3 days ago. Today is January the 6th. This article was done January the 3rd, and the article reads, "Killer Dad Chris Watts is writing a book behind bars." Watts is authoring a book of prayers with some help from fellow inmate Dylan Tallman. The 2 individuals who are close to Watts spoke to OK and revealed that the book will be called Revelation and the Reckoning. Watts likely chose to work with Tallman because he has previously self-published a book. It just goes on to say that Chris was not a religious man prior to his time in prison. The relationship between Chris and Dylan is unclear. Dylan has a lengthy history at Dodge Correctional Institute. He is currently suing multiple employees at Dodge, which is how the Watts incident even came to life. In one filing, Dylan writes that after a correction officer told him he was not going to heaven, that Watts had to calm him down for an hour. I guess Chris had to talk him off of a ledge. Dylan has said in legal filings he will drop all of his complaints if the state will agree to transfer him from the maximum security prison to a mental health facility. He has been in and out of prison for most of his life. This was Chris's first major infraction since he has been transferred to Dodge. This also 3 days ago, January the 3rd. And it says that Chris Watt's prison pal has relocated. And that's what we were talking about earlier when I told you he has now been moved some other prison or facility. Chris will no longer have to worry about sharing his petroleum jelly with Dylan. Revealed in the court papers obtained by OK that he has been transferred out of Dodge. In his court filing, Dylan writes that he was moved to a new facility earlier this week. His location is still listed as Dodge Correctional Institute online. The new facility should make Dylan happy, as it offers mental health treatment, something that he has been petitioning the court to receive in his many active lawsuits. Tallman, who had been working on a book of prayers with Watts, said he did not feel safe or trust anyone at DCI. In the filing he submitted on Friday. At the same time, Chris had been making phone calls to members of Dylan's family. He had not only called Dylan's mother multiple times, but had his own parents contact Dylan's mother and girlfriend with messages. And remember, Dylan's girlfriend is Christa. The content of those messages is unknown, but a prison report obtained by OK notes they were both phone and text messages. The punishment for the July incident seems to have been more severe because Dylan had committed both of these infractions before. He had another inmate making calls for him in April and had also been found with canteen products that were not purchased by him at the facility. It says that Chris also admitted to calling Dylan's mom for him and having Chris's parents message or call inmate Tallman's mom and girlfriend also. So that's Christa. So I say Chris admitted that. It is on the reports. And I will show you the report. Inmates are not allowed to make telephone calls for other inmates per the DCI handbook. Inmate Watts said that he was aware that he cannot give another inmate his property and did not have permission to give any items away. Okay, this is not in the articles or the tabloids. I do have it on my computer, and I told you I would show you this. This is the affidavit where Chris was in support of Dylan and this whole situation that occurred that we've been talking about. I'm not going to read it because one, it's hard to read. So I will go through it. If you want to read it, just pause and read, pause and read. But I'm just going to scroll through it. what was in the affidavit, and that Chris was kind of a witness to it. And this is something that happened over a year ago. He was allegedly strapped to a bed for 6 days wearing just his underwear, and he claims that the medical staff ignored him, and he had to be rushed to the hospital because he gave himself an injury that bled out for so long that he even required a blood transfusion. So this Dylan guy, he gave himself this injury, and he ended up having to have a blood transfusion for doing this to himself. It says that Dylan talks about Chris like his big brother and his protector. He said he did his best to carry out that role back in June as he monitored the situation with Dylan, and he later put it all together in an affidavit. And this is some of the stuff Chris wrote in the affidavit that I just showed you. Again, I'm not going to read all this. If you couldn't read Chris's writing, you're welcome to pause this here and read it here. It goes on to say that Dylan says in a separate filing from another lawsuit that him and Chris are actually working together on 2 books. He also points out that these books are religious and says that this is why the 2 men could not be homosexuals. We have books coming out on Christianity. How does a man of God condone homosexuality, wrote Dylan. And of course it goes on to say that Dylan is not at DCI anymore. He is now in a supervised living facility. And of course, yes, Watts is still at DCI. Well, there you go. That's what we know about Dylan. That's what I could find. And in the next part, I'm going to be getting into something. I'm going to be showing 2 sides. But not only am I going to be showing it, I'm going to be literally showing it straight. I guess you could say the best way to put it is from the horse's mouth. So yeah, just think about what I've showed you here and what you've learned. Okay, guys. Thank you for watching, listening. I hope you have a good day, night, evening, wherever you may be. And until next time, this is UnJustified.